Have you ever felt trapped chasing endless goals, always reaching for happiness, but never quite catching it? You're not alone. In today's fast-paced world, so many of us struggle with stress, anxiety, and the relentless urge to control every outcome. But what if the secret to true peace and lasting happiness isn't about pushing harder, but about letting go in a wise and mindful way? In this video, I'll share 10 life-changing lessons from Stoicism. A powerful philosophy embraced by successful leaders, athletes, and everyday people seeking greater clarity and calm. You'll discover practical strategies to handle life's unexpected twists, strengthen your relationships, and unlock new levels of creativity and fulfillment. Trust me, you'll want to watch this video right to the end because the insights you'll gain just might change everything. And if you're inspired to master more ways to live a richer, more intentional life, don't forget to hit subscribe. Your support helps bring you more great content every week. Life often presents us with a multitude of pressures and expectations, prompting us to push, pull, and strive ceaselessly for control. Yet there is an age-old wisdom suggesting that one of the most profound paths to inner peace is learning when not to force anything. In this spirit, Stoicism teaches us that while determination and discipline have their place, real tranquility comes when we embrace natural flow and relinquish the illusion that we can micromanage every outcome. This perspective has found renewed relevance in our modern era, where busy schedules, constant digital notifications, and unrelenting ambitions can easily cloud our sense of calm. We see people wrestling with personal relationships, career goals, and health challenges in ways that turn life into an endless battle. The Stoics, however, remind us that peace is nurtured by focusing on what is within our power, our mindset choices and moral purpose, and by releasing our grip on the countless factors that lie outside our command. Historically, Stoicism emerged in ancient Greece, developed further in Rome, and ultimately inspired generations of thinkers across the centuries. Figures like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius articulated principles still vital today: accept life's natural rhythm, live in accordance with virtue, and remain steadfast under pressure. Their teachings highlight that internal harmony arises from properly understanding the nature of control. If modern life is marked by constant hustle, the Stoic way can serve as an antidote, helping us balance ambition with acceptance, zeal with mindfulness. Rather than advocating a life of passivity, Stoicism encourages active engagement, but in alignment with wisdom and self-knowledge instead of blind force. The principle, "Don't force anything in your life," stands as a clear reminder that, while effort matters, forcing rigid outcomes in disregard of reality leads to frustration and needless stress. To bring these insights more concretely into everyday living, we can look to 10 core Stoic lessons that guide us toward inner peace. They emphasize the importance of presence, humility, moderation, and gratitude, illustrating that internal transformation often proves more potent than external fixation. Whether we are seeking fulfillment in career relationships or personal well-being, these lessons remind us that our primary locus of control always rests in our mental and emotional responses. Embracing this perspective frees us from the futile quest to ensure everything aligns perfectly with our desires. After all, the external world shaped by unpredictable events, the decisions of others, and the inevitability of change operates on its own terms. In the pages that follow, we will explore each of these Stoic lessons in detail, examining how to integrate them into everyday life. The overarching theme is an emphasis on thoughtful acceptance and mindful presence, rather than brute force. We will see that living fully in the moment does not erase ambition, but gives it purpose. We will realize that understanding impermanence fosters resilience. We will examine how acceptance builds grace during adversity. And we will learn that letting go paradoxically allows us to embrace life's richness more completely. Part 1 sets the scene by introducing the core framework of Stoicism, offering a deeper look into the first 4 lessons: living in the present, acknowledging impermanence, practicing acceptance, and learning to let go. As we traverse these insights, we encourage reflection on how each concept resonates with your personal experiences, because Stoicism is not just a theoretical model, but a living philosophy that can shape how we handle daily trials, big or small. Ultimately, this journey reveals that by moving from constant coercion toward patient understanding, we find a steadier, more sustainable foundation for true peace. When we speak of Stoicism, we often invoke images of serene ancient philosophers dressed in simple robes reflecting upon life's deeper truths. Yet the Stoic attitude is anything but outdated. Its relevance shines through in modern challenges as it offers a structured, reality-based approach to coping with stress, uncertainty, and even emotional turbulence. The Stoic perspective does not demand that we become emotionless. Rather, it teaches us how to keep our emotions informed by reason, ensuring we respond wisely to events rather than react impulsively. This cultivated mindset stands in stark contrast to the urge to force outcomes, a tendency that arises when we feel we must exert power over everything from random misfortunes to other people's behaviors. The underlying principle of don't force anything in your life rests on the understanding that a life fueled by relentless control ultimately wears us down, creating more tension than triumph. Indeed, a primary focus of Stoicism is the notion of living in harmony with nature, which includes understanding the natural course of events and our role within a broader cosmic framework. To the Stoics, much of the distress we experience comes from trying to remold reality to fit our personal preferences. We push, we pull, we insist only to discover that circumstances rarely heed our impatience. If we cling to an illusion of absolute control, each unmet expectation becomes a source of frustration. It's akin to swimming against a powerful current. We might exhaust ourselves and still fail to travel very far. Meanwhile, acknowledging that certain elements like weather, unexpected obstacles, or other people's will stand beyond our control can ease this struggle. We shift from draining conflict to strategic alignment, focusing our efforts where we can genuinely make a difference. Approaching life with Stoic principles helps clarify the path to genuine peace. The overarching framework can be summarized as follows. Discern between what you can control, your actions, choices, interpretation, and what you cannot, external events, other people's mind, chance occurrences. Devote energy to enhancing your inner virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation, while calmly acknowledging external results for what they are. Observe your emotional reactions. Recognize that negative emotions often surface when we conflate what we wish would happen with what actually happens. From this vantage point, forcing life's hand appears far less rational as reality proceeds according to its own rhythm. Our genuine power rests in deliberate self-regulation. Ironically, once we relinquish the need for brute force, we often find ourselves more open and adaptable, thus better positioned to progress toward meaningful goals. This is not a call to inaction, but rather a plea for wise, discerning action. The difference is subtle, yet powerful. Imagine choosing to work diligently on a project all the while, accepting that the final outcome could take unforeseen turns versus laboring in a tense frenzy, desperate for perfection and wholly unwilling to allow any deviation. The first scenario fosters a calm, consistent approach. The second scenario brings anxiety, impatience, and often a sense of perpetual dissatisfaction. With that context, the ensuing lessons will show that Stoic thought is not locked in antiquity, but resonates strongly in our modern pursuit of balanced success. In this first part, we'll introduce the foundational lessons that set the tone for the rest, how to live in the present moment, why acknowledging impermanence cultivates freedom, the significance of acceptance in shaping our emotional equilibrium, and the powerful release that comes from letting go. Each concept aims to remove internal blocks that keep us stuck in cycles of forcing, pushing, or fighting against life's natural current, allowing us instead to discover the enduring strength in going with that current wisely. The first Stoic lesson that underscores the principle of not forcing anything is learning to live fully in the present moment. Philosophers across eras have reminded us that the present is truly the only time we ever inhabit. Still, many of us spend our days fixated on future goals or buried in regrets about the past. This distracts us from experiencing life as it happens, a disconnection the Stoics believed to be a major source of distress. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, famously implored readers of his meditations to be mindful of the brevity of life, urging them not to act as if they had 10,000 years to live. His words illuminate a striking reality because we do not know the duration of our existence. Deferring our genuine engagement with each moment is perilous. When we fail to remain present, life's richness slips through our fingers. A common contemporary example is multitasking while eating. Often we gulp meals while scrolling on smartphones, half focused on messages, social media, or the next meeting. Stoic wisdom would suggest we treat each meal as an opportunity for nourishment, not just of the body, but of the mind. By directing full attention to the flavors, textures, and the simple gift of sustenance, we cultivate gratitude for what is immediately in front of us. This practice might feel marginal, but it exemplifies how living in the present reorients our attention away from constant worry or planning. We become more grounded, less reactive, and more appreciative of the everyday life that we usually take for granted. In a broader sense, living in the present also means releasing the compulsion to control future outcomes. Planning for the future has its rightful place, and Stoicism does not dismiss prudent preparation or goal setting. However, the actual execution of our plans unfolds moment by moment, shaped by unpredictable factors beyond our command. By grounding ourselves in the present, we notice subtleties, an unexpected opportunity, a meaningful conversation, or even signs that a plan is going awry and needs recalibration. Such attentiveness fosters agility and readiness to respond. Conversely, if we are too fixated on an idealized vision of how things should proceed, we force events to match that vision, ignoring signals that reality is taking a different course. This can lead to frustration, wasted effort, and missed chances for a more harmonious solution. Practically speaking, mindfulness techniques help anchor us in the present. The Stoics might not have labeled it mindfulness in the modern sense, but they echoed its central theme. Pay attention to your thoughts and actions without getting swept up by them. Epictetus advised his students to regularly question their activities with mindful scrutiny. What am I doing right now, and does it serve my well-being and virtue? This habit disrupts autopilot living, allowing us to refocus on what truly matters. Whether it's during a simple chore like washing dishes, or in a pivotal career discussion, bringing conscious attention to the unfolding moment shapes more balanced responses and fosters deeper enjoyment of our daily routines. Thus, the Stoic call to live fully in the present is not a denial of life's obligations, nor a carefree disregard for consequences. Rather, it is an invitation to hold each moment with reverence, clarity, and acceptance. This approach lessens the tension of forcing outcomes because the real measure of success becomes how we conduct ourselves now in this single slice of time we genuinely possess. As we cultivate this practice, we find stress and anxiety recede, replaced by a sense of groundedness and purposeful calm. A natural foundation for the other 9 lessons to flourish. Connected closely with living in the present is the Stoic understanding of life's impermanence. This is the second lesson that underpins the ethos of not forcing things to be other than what they are. Ancient Stoics recognized that everything, relationships, possessions, physical health, and even life itself shifts over time. This perspective is both sobering and liberating. On one hand, it reminds us that nothing remains fixed, and that we will inevitably face loss, transition, and mortality. On the other, it underscores that precisely because things are transient, we have every reason to cherish them while they last. Rather than expending energy on exerting fruitless control, we can instead cultivate appreciation for the present manifestation of our world. Marcus Aurelius, in his personal writings, often reflected on the fragility of existence. He urged himself, and indirectly us, to be ever mindful that we could leave life right now. Far from a pessimistic statement, this is a clarion call to use time wisely. If we hold on to the illusion that we have ample tomorrows, guaranteed we might procrastinate on what truly counts: spending time with loved ones, pursuing meaningful work, or expressing gratitude. The Stoics aren't advising a reckless life like there's no tomorrow approach, but a thoughtful awareness that ultimately all experiences, achievements, and connections will transform or fade. With this recognition, we naturally come to value each fleeting moment. A classic area where impermanence influences our behavior is in personal relationships. We often assume certain bonds. Romantic, familial, or friendships will endure indefinitely, leading us to take them for granted. The Stoic viewpoint reminds us that people come in and out of our lives due to changing circumstances, personal growth, or the unavoidable passage of time. By accepting that those bonds are not guaranteed, we can be more present, more forgiving, and more grateful for the interactions we share. Epictetus even advised that when kissing your child, "Good night, you should remember the child is mortal, however unsettling that might sound." His intention was not to evoke fear, but to awaken deeper appreciation and a conscious cherishing of each moment together. Material possessions also illustrate the lesson of impermanence. Our wealth status and comforts can vanish due to economic downturns, natural disasters, or shifts in social standing. By acknowledging that these external goods are transient, we develop resilience to loss. This resilience need not dampen our enjoyment of what we have. Rather, it shifts our stance from a sense of entitlement to one of gratitude. There is a significant distinction between clinging to possessions in fear of losing them and valuing them while accepting that loss is possible. Seneca succinctly captured this when he pointed out that much suffering arises not from the event itself, the loss of money or property, but from our frantic attempts to avoid or deny the possibility of that loss. Ultimately, the acceptance of impermanence is a steadfast guard against forcing life to conform to unrealistic expectations. When we see the natural flow of gain, change, and decline, we become less inclined to rage against circumstances. Instead of tightening our grip in the face of uncertainty, we open ourselves to the ephemeral beauty of each stage. This leads to a more tranquil coexistence with life as it naturally evolves. In other words, we learn to adapt gracefully with less bitterness, precisely because we understood from the outset that nothing was ours to keep forever. Embracing that viewpoint ironically allows us to engage more wholeheartedly with the people, places, and possessions that grace our current reality. Building upon impermanence is the power of acceptance. The third Stoic lesson crucial for cultivating tranquility and self-confidence. Acceptance within the Stoic framework is not passive surrender. Rather, it is the acknowledgement of reality as it stands. By confronting and embracing what is, we conserve emotional energy that might otherwise be squandered on denial, resistance, or futile attempts to manipulate the unchangeable. Epictetus famously stated, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." This encapsulates the essence of acceptance. Direct your efforts wisely toward aspects of life you can realistically affect your own intentions, judgments, and actions, and remain composed toward the rest. Many people misunderstand acceptance to mean embracing complacency or showing indifference to injustice. However, Stoicism differentiates between events external to us and the moral dimension of how we respond. For instance, if we witness unfair treatment of a colleague, acceptance does not mean turning a blind eye. Instead, it means recognizing that such injustice exists, while also recognizing that our power lies in how we choose to step up, speak out, or create change. We accept the situation in the sense of seeing it clearly and acknowledging that certain outcomes, like other people's willingness to cooperate, may lie beyond our control. Our moral duty from a Stoic viewpoint then becomes to act virtuously within the scope of our influence, striving for fairness while not succumbing to despair if the external environment remains resistant. In everyday life, a typical example of where acceptance can be transformative is dealing with traffic jams. Everyone has experienced the frustration of being stuck on the road, powerless over the pace at which cars inch forward. The knee-jerk reaction is anger or impatience, blasting the horn, shouting at fellow drivers, or feeling an internal surge of rage. None of these responses affect the traffic itself. They only compound personal stress. The Stoic approach is to recognize that traffic is beyond one's personal control, then shift focus to something constructive, such as listening to an audiobook or practicing calm breathing techniques. The difference is subtle but powerful. We let go of the illusion that yelling can make cars magically move faster, thereby preserving emotional well-being. Acceptance also plays a pivotal role in how we process setbacks or failure. Often people blame themselves excessively, ruminate on how things should have gone, or dwell in regret. By contrast, Stoic acceptance urges us to glean lessons from the event and then release the mental burden of wishing we could alter the past. This fosters resilience. We do not pretend the setback did not occur, nor do we whitewash our mistakes. Instead, we incorporate what we learned into future decisions. Marcus Aurelius captured this sentiment, encouraging us to love only what happens, a phrase pointing to the Stoic practice of amor fati, or loving one's fate. This means we do not merely tolerate whatever happens, but strive to be at peace with it, taking it as a part of life's natural tapestry that can enhance our growth. Hence, the power of acceptance helps us direct our energies toward productive action rather than emotional turmoil. Once we cease resisting what cannot be changed, like other people's opinions, unfortunate timing, or random events, the heavy burden of forced control lifts. We can then invest our resources where they truly matter, improving our attitude, refining our virtues, and engaging in tasks aligned with our values. This psychological shift opens the door to equanimity and fortifies our ability to navigate the unexpected. Acceptance becomes a tool for clarity, granting us the vision to discern what we can change and the grace to endure what we cannot. It is within this space of clear seeing and composure that a life without forced strain gradually takes shape. Letting go often constitutes the pivotal moment that distinguishes someone who lives by Stoic principles from someone who struggles against life's current. This fourth lesson arises naturally once we appreciate impermanence and the necessity of acceptance. We discover that clinging fiercely, whether to old grudges, fear of failure, or the desire to micromanage outcomes, leads only to exhaustion and distress. The Stoics teach that letting go is not about apathy or giving up our ambitions. Instead, it's about releasing mental and emotional attachments that serve no productive purpose. We can see a prime example in how individuals handle disappointments, such as a lost job opportunity. Some people spiral into resentment, anger, or self-pity, replaying scenarios in their mind asking, "What if?" or "Why me?" In these ruminations, energy is consumed by regret over an outcome that cannot be reversed. Stoicism suggests a different approach. Glean lessons from the experience, perhaps identifying ways to improve your skill set or interview strategy, and then consciously let go of the lingering negativity. This release does not diminish the importance of striving for a better job in the future. It simply acknowledges that the past cannot be changed through force of will or repeated mental anguish. By freeing yourself from that emotional baggage, you create space to move on with renewed clarity. Letting go also improves our relationships. Consider the dynamic of interpersonal conflict. We often hold on to resentments in the hope that the other person will admit fault or offer an apology. In many cases, that apology never comes, leaving us stuck with simmering anger that only damages our own peace. From a Stoic vantage, letting go of that bitterness is not the same as condoning bad behavior. It is an act of self-liberation that severs the emotional chain tying you to past incidents. When you relinquish the need for external vindication, you reclaim inner stability. It is not events that disturb people. Epictetus explained, but their judgments concerning them. This statement encourages us to examine whether our mental narratives around an event can be released or reinterpreted for our own well-being. A further dimension of letting go pertains to material possessions. Our consumer-driven culture encourages accumulation, often with the promise that owning more leads to greater happiness. Yet the Stoics recognized this trap centuries ago. Seneca underscored that true wealth is found in wanting less, not hoarding more. Letting go of the desire to continually upgrade or acquire frees us from a cycle of perpetual dissatisfaction. By recognizing that material items are temporary comforts capable of being lost or broken at any time, we become less attached. This doesn't mean rejecting possessions entirely, but rather seeing them as tools, not the bedrock of our identity or fulfillment. Such forms of letting go radiate a sense of liberation throughout every facet of life. We find ourselves less drained by conflicts or losses and more able to adapt to ever-changing circumstances. In essence, letting go is the antidote to the harmful pressure of forcing reality to comply with rigid expectations. It allows us to engage wholeheartedly in life's endeavors while retaining the emotional flexibility to pivot gracefully when life takes unexpected turns. This is precisely why letting go stands at the core of a Stoic approach to personal freedom and serenity. Having laid out the foundational Stoic teachings, living in the present, recognizing impermanence, cultivating acceptance, and practicing the art of letting go, we begin to see the framework for escaping the habit of forcing things in life. These 4 lessons highlight a perspective shift away from external obsessions and rigid demands. By grounding ourselves in the present, we channel our energy into what truly merits our attention. By acknowledging that everything we cherish may change or fade, we heighten gratitude and reduce anxiety. Through acceptance, we acknowledge reality for what it is, rather than expending effort to reshape it into what we wish it would be. Finally, in letting go, we sever ties that serve only to ensnare us in futile struggles, freeing ourselves to act with clarity and renewed commitment. Taken together, these insights help dismantle the misconception that peace requires circumstances to be perfect or under our absolute control. Instead, peace arises from how we interpret and respond to the world. Rather than constraining our emotional and intellectual resources by hammering away at the immovable, we redirect our efforts toward constructive endeavors within our sphere of influence. This realignment of focus is in many ways the essence of Stoic wisdom. It not only diminishes needless stress, but also fosters a robust sense of personal agency. Once we realize we can shape our inner world, even if external factors stand beyond our grasp, we reclaim power over our well-being. To carry these lessons into your daily routine, consider performing a nightly or weekly reflection. Ask yourself how often you found your mind stuck in future worries or replaying past mistakes and how that affected your sense of calm. Contemplate moments where acceptance might have prevented emotional upheaval. Did clinging to an expected outcome add to your stress? This regular introspection, championed by all 3 major Stoics, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, helps internalize the teachings by spotlighting your thought patterns in real time. Over the weeks and months, you may gradually notice a calmer approach taking root where you become quicker to adapt and less prone to frustration. As we transition into part 2 of this expanded exploration, we will continue revealing further Stoic lessons that deepen and broaden these initial themes. We'll discuss practices like mindfulness, the strategic use of silence, finding joy in life's simple details, and the art of gratitude. Each lesson reinforces the idea that the best way to navigate an uncertain world is not by locking horns with it, but by learning to move in harmony with its currents. Far from breeding passivity, this fosters a dynamic form of engagement. You act decisively where action is warranted and refrain from incurring emotional strain in battles you cannot win. By the time we complete these 10 lessons, a cohesive Stoic mindset emerges, one that sees tension and forcing as impediments and readiness presence and acceptance as the means to a more liberated existence. Embracing these principles does not come overnight. It is an ongoing discipline as relevant now as it was in the days of the Roman Empire. In a modern milieu, overflowing with distractions and constant connectivity, the call of Stoicism to step back, observe calmly, and act only where we can truly be effective has perhaps never been more pertinent. Pause for a moment, reflect on these first 4 lessons, and allow yourself the grace to accept the real and let go of the rest. Then join us in part 2 as we continue forging a path toward peace, resilience, and a life unhindered by unnecessary force. Having established the foundations of Stoicism in Part 1, encompassing the significance of living in the present, recognizing impermanence, practicing acceptance, and learning to let go, we now turn to another trio of lessons that further reinforce the principle, don't force anything in your life. In this second segment, we delve into 3 Stoic teachings that center on how to engage the world thoughtfully from the inside out. While the first 4 lessons laid the groundwork by encouraging us to release excessive control and remain grounded in reality, the next 3 emphasize how to navigate daily life with heightened awareness and deliberation. Taken together. Lessons 5. 6 and 7 provide practical strategies for maintaining calm, improving communication, and cultivating a more balanced approach to goals and achievements. The modern world offers countless distractions, from the endless scrolling of social media feeds to the perpetual noise of 24-hour news cycles. It is also an era that prizes immediate gratification and a rapid pace of action. Amid such a setting, it becomes ever more crucial to find ways to remain anchored to ensure that our decisions, emotions, and interactions reflect composure rather than compulsion. This necessity underlines the ongoing relevance of Stoicism in contemporary life. The pursuit of mindfulness helps ensure that we are present for each moment. The effective use of silence allows us to process what truly matters in our relationships, decisions, and creative pursuits. And the practice of enjoying the journey, rather than fixating solely on outcomes, reminds us that life's depth and richness often unfold in the small steps and subtle experiences along the way. Before we examine these 3 lessons individually, it is worth reiterating the core Stoic conviction that power resides chiefly in our responses, not in external events. When we cultivate habits that refine our inner world, our thought patterns, emotional states, and sense of purpose, we protect ourselves from being tossed about by every shift in circumstance. At the same time, we become more flexible and open-minded because we are neither forcing external realities to bend to our will, nor resisting them in frustration. This dual capacity, both stability and adaptability, lies at the heart of what it means to flourish, according to Stoic wisdom. In this spirit, let us move forward to lessons 5, 6, and 7. We begin with practicing mindfulness, a cornerstone of not only Stoicism, but many other philosophical and spiritual traditions. Mindfulness in a Stoic sense is not about emptying your mind. Rather, it is the vigilant observation of your own thoughts, allowing you to notice when fear, anger, or baseless desires start to cloud your judgment. From there, we discuss how using silence effectively can deepen that self-awareness and improve communication, a skill that is easily neglected in a world brimming with incessant chatter. Finally, we explore why enjoying the journey. Not just the outcome can be transformational, easing the pressure to force success and reminding us that real growth usually unfolds steadily over time, one thoughtful action at a time. Embracing these ideas not only mitigates the sense of hurry and angst that modern life often induces, but also contributes to an ethos of calm determination. A balanced manner of living, aligned with the eternal Stoic principle of inner clarity over external compulsion. The 5th lesson, practice. Mindfulness weaves naturally into the Stoic tapestry by helping us cultivate an active awareness of what is unfolding in real time. While mindfulness has become something of a buzzword in contemporary wellness circles, its roots stretch back through various ancient traditions, including Buddhism and, in its own way, Stoicism. When Marcus Aurelius speaks of confining yourself to the present, he underscores a sentiment echoed in modern mindfulness practices: direct full attention to the moment you are currently living, for it is the only slice of time that truly belongs to you. The Stoics recognized that mental drift, constantly revisiting regrets about the past or fretting about future hypotheticals, destabilizes our peace and robs us of the chance to respond effectively to current challenges. From a Stoic viewpoint, mindfulness is not about suppressing emotions or forcibly quieting the mind. Instead, it is about noticing thoughts and feelings as they arise, evaluating them rationally, and deciding which to act on. Epictetus suggested that we question our impressions, those immediate mental reactions, before accepting them as truth. For instance, when something irritating happens, such as a co-worker acting irresponsibly, our knee-jerk impression might be, "They are intentionally disrespecting me." A mindful Stoic pause, however, might reveal that there are multiple interpretations and it is not necessarily personal. This moment of recognition helps prevent a cascade of anger or resentment. In other words, mindfulness creates a brief but powerful mental gap between stimulus and response, giving reason the chance to step in. One can develop this cognitive gap through simple, everyday practices. A typical Stoic exercise might involve taking a few minutes each morning to mentally rehearse the day ahead, anticipating potential obstacles and preparing a calm response. Then in the evening, conducting a review of how you handled actual events, praising yourself for measured reactions, and reflecting on where you might improve. Even something as unremarkable as doing the dishes or folding laundry can turn into mindfulness practice. Focus on the physical sensations, the methodical movements, and your own breathing. If your mind starts racing with worries or to-dos, note that you have drifted and guide your attention back. Though seemingly mundane, these small acts of discipline across the day deepen your capacity for present moment awareness. Moreover, practicing mindfulness aligns closely with the Stoic principle of not forcing outcomes. By staying engaged in the present, you reduce the compulsion to control or anticipate everything that may come next. In essence, you act skillfully in the moment and then relinquish attachment to how the future will unfold. This stance offers relief from the anxiety that arises when we try to predict every twist and turn. Instead, your energy is channeled into the task at hand, allowing for a more refined performance and a calmer mindset. Over time, such deliberate attention fosters self-confidence because you become adept at noticing and managing your emotional impulses. Rather than being thrown off balance by each external fluctuation, you remain anchored, resilient, and poised, an embodiment of Stoic mindfulness. The sixth lesson: use silence, effectively stands out as both a simple and profoundly transformative practice within Stoic philosophy. We often underestimate the power of silence in a culture where constant communication through texts, social media, updates, calls, and notifications dominates our routines. Yet the Stoics, and Marcus Aurelius in particular, celebrated the strategic choice to remain silent as an active expression of self-control and reflection. Silence in Stoic terms is not merely the absence of speech. It is a deliberate pause that allows us to gather our thoughts and respond with clarity rather than impulse. Every day we encounter situations where the immediate reaction is to speak, perhaps to defend ourselves, to correct someone else, or to fill an awkward gap in conversation. Seneca observed that restraint in speech often reveals a well-ordered mind, reflecting the idea that not every urge to voice a thought should be followed. Instead of rushing into retort or prove a point, letting a moment of silence pass can bring to light additional context or can de-escalate tension. In personal relationships, this brief pause can be the difference between a minor disagreement and a hurtful argument. By allowing yourself a breath before responding, you minimize the chance that heated emotions take command. This is particularly true in online discourse, where misunderstandings arise quickly and heated exchanges escalate at a click's pace. Practicing silence, or at least a measured pause before reacting to a post or message, can significantly enhance the civility and substance of the conversation. Beyond conflict management, strategic silence fosters deeper engagement with the world. When we practice listening rather than speaking, we open ourselves to new insights. We may discover nuances in someone's argument that we initially missed, or we might detect emotional undertones that are lost if we interrupt too soon. Silence thus serves as a tool for more genuine understanding of both people and circumstances. Epictetus remarked that we are endowed with 2 ears and 1 mouth, for a reason to hear far more than we speak. In a noisy era, applying this wisdom can elevate both personal and professional interactions, helping us stand out as thoughtful participants in any dialogue. Beyond social settings, silence holds value in solitary reflection. Stoics championed time alone free from external chatter to survey one's own life. Marcus Aurelius notably retreated into his mental fortress, amid political and administrative chaos, using silence as a protective boundary through which he could review his own motives, decisions, and moral compass. In modern life, scheduling moments of quiet reflection, perhaps during a walk in nature, a morning meditation, or simply a break from digital devices, restores mental clarity and fosters emotional resilience. The Stoic approach to silence is active, not passive. It offers a break from the unending swirl of social pressure and personal anxieties, allowing us to regain balance. Thus, in a world that nudges us to fill every gap with activity or noise, deliberately choosing silence proves a radical act of self-possession, a tangible expression of the Stoic principle to avoid forcing even when that force might take the form of unnecessary speech. The 7th Stoic lesson: enjoy the journey. Not just the outcome addresses one of the most prevalent modern dilemmas, the tendency to see life as an endless procession of milestones and achievements, with happiness perpetually postponed until we reach the next goal. Stoicism counters this by asserting that real fulfillment emerges from how we live each day, not just from what we finally accomplish. Epictetus framed this idea by cautioning us to align our desires with events as they naturally unfold, rather than straining to make events match our exact wishes. Essentially, he recognized that the chase for specific rigid outcomes is an easy way to set oneself up for continual disappointment. Today, many people measure success predominantly by external metrics: a completed degree, a promotion, an ideal home, or a particular income bracket. While it is not inherently problematic to have ambitions, Stoics emphasize that we should not tie our sense of worth or contentment to the outcome of those ambitions. We do best when we focus on the process, the day-to-day actions, the effort, the discipline, and the insights acquired along the way. Seneca taught that adversity is often the crucible for strengthening character, and that success rarely teaches us as much as struggle does. When we obsess over the outcome alone, we miss the opportunity to glean wisdom from each step of the journey. Consider a scenario where someone trains for a marathon. If they are entirely fixated on finishing in a certain time or placing in a particular bracket, the daily grind of training may morph into drudgery. Each run is a chore. Each small setback feels catastrophic. In contrast, a Stoic viewpoint would encourage appreciation of each training session as it happens. The runner might notice subtle improvements in stamina or technique, experience the crisp morning air, or savor the discipline that accumulates through consistent effort. Should race day bring unexpected challenges, an injury, poor weather, or just not feeling at one's best, this individual will be less crushed by disappointment because they have already harvested value from the journey. The final result, though significant, is only a fraction of the total experience. This approach does not banish ambition. Rather, it reframes how we relate to our aspirations. We still set goals, but the goals become markers, guiding us, not absolute indicators of self-worth. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself that life is fleeting and that our focus should be on ethical and meaningful engagement with the tasks at hand. By channeling energy into the quality of our efforts and the learning gleaned from each attempt, we remove the toxic pressure to force perfection or guarantee a particular result. Achievements then become byproducts of consistent, mindful action rather than the sole wellspring of happiness. When you reorient toward enjoying the journey, the daily highs and lows fall into perspective. Occasional stumbling blocks feel less like personal failures and more like integral components of growth. Life transitions from a series of all-or-nothing gambits to an evolving narrative, one in which each chapter holds lessons, joys, and challenges of its own. For the Stoic practitioner, such an approach undercuts the urge to push incessantly for specific outcomes and reduces the anxiety of, "What if I don't make it?" Indeed, you're already making it through each purposeful step you take, learning and refining yourself in the process. By looking more deeply into lessons 5, 6, and 7, we recognize a unifying principle. Each invites us to engage life with intention rather than compulsion. Mindfulness reminds us to inhabit the present moment fully and attentively, cutting through the fog of unconscious habits. When we act mindfully, we bring clarity to our decisions, noticing emotional patterns before they hijack our behavior. In essence, mindfulness trains us not to force mental states to vanish, but to observe them without letting them dictate unwise action. This resonates profoundly with Epictetus's caution that external events themselves do not harm us. It is our interpretation of these events that cause disturbance. Mindful observation of our thoughts helps refine these interpretations, creating freedom in how we respond. Silence likewise reinforces the notion of choice. We are not obligated to fill every pause with words or every lull with commentary. By opting for silence when appropriate, we acknowledge that not every impulse is worth expressing. Consequently, we avoid the force of continuously projecting ourselves into each conversation or argument. This opens a mental space where reflection can thrive and fosters a deeper understanding of both ourselves and others. The Stoics found strength in these pauses because they felt that controlling one's tongue is among the hardest yet most rewarding forms of self-governance. Consider how many heated arguments could be dissolved or avoided altogether if each participant allowed a moment for reason to catch up with emotion. In that sense, silence can be a powerful mediator, anchoring us in calm deliberation. Finally, enjoying the journey aligns with this perspective by dismantling the notion that success or contentment is wholly determined by external outcomes. If we become fixated on achieving a specific benchmark, such as wealth, social status, or a pristine reputation, we unwittingly give external variables dominion over our happiness. The Stoic invitation is to commit wholeheartedly to the process of whatever it is we wish to pursue, whether it is learning a new skill, developing a career, or shaping healthier relationships. Each incremental step, especially those that come with trial and error, represents an education in resilience. When we see the process as inherently valuable, we no longer place ourselves in conflict with the uncertain nature of life. We flow with reality rather than forcing it to reward us on our timetable and terms. In this combined light, mindfulness, silence, and process-oriented living form a cohesive template for navigating modern stresses. These lessons ensure we remain adaptive, gracious, and open-minded. We become less susceptible to frustration when circumstances deviate from our initial script. After all, Stoic peace is about dancing with life's inherent unpredictability rather than hoping to subdue or redesign it. From small daily challenges like sudden traffic delays or workplace disagreements to life-altering events such as job loss, heartbreak, or health crises. These three lessons show us how to respond with patient vigilance, tempered emotions, and consistent effort. By living in alignment with these virtues, we gradually cultivate the Stoic strength to exist fully, speak judiciously, and act purposefully. Translating these Stoic lessons, mindfulness, judicious use of silence, and a focus on process rather than outcome into the modern day reveals numerous practical benefits. Consider the omnipresence of digital technology. Many individuals struggle with screen time and the addictive pull of notifications. Mindfulness can act as a buffer in these situations, prompting us to acknowledge the impulse to check our devices reflexively. By pausing and deciding intentionally rather than reacting automatically, we create healthier boundaries around technology. For instance, setting a conscious limit on when to read emails or browse social media fosters a more balanced day. Instead of forcing ourselves to be perpetually connected, we use deliberate silence and presence to reclaim mental calm, carving out tech-free windows to read, reflect, or simply rest our minds. In the workplace, these lessons significantly enhance leadership and collaboration. Leaders who practice mindfulness are better listeners and more capable of catching subtle workplace dynamics. Those who master silence know when to hear out their team's concerns, rather than rushing to fix them with immediate opinions. A team environment shaped by Stoic ideals of calm reflection often yields higher morale and creative problem-solving, as employees feel genuinely heard and are not pressured to always deliver instantaneous solutions. Moreover, an organization that values the process over a narrowly defined outcome might encourage periodic reviews to celebrate incremental achievements and learn from missteps. This approach fosters innovation because employees feel safe experimenting without the dread of catastrophic failure if the final result does not match an unrealistic ideal. On a personal level, relationships thrive when we integrate these Stoic tenets. Many conflicts arise from miscommunication or from one party trying to force another into a particular mode of behavior. Through mindfulness, we can see our own biases and triggers more clearly, catching ourselves before we lash out. Through silence, we create a respectful space for our partner or friend to express themselves fully, increasing empathy and mutual understanding. By enjoying the journey of the relationship, rather than obsessing over whether it checks every perfect relationship box, we remain open to growth, shared interests, and genuine connection. The Stoic perspective invites patience with ourselves and others, reminding us that we all evolve at our own pace. These lessons also intersect powerfully with mental health strategies. Contemporary therapy methods like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, include mindfulness exercises and emphasize the importance of regulating reactions to stressors parallels. that echo the teachings of Epictetus on controlling our interpretations. Silence in therapeutic settings can be a moment of measured introspection. Clients who practice mindful pauses often make progress by observing their automatic thoughts, like anxiety about an upcoming event or guilt over a past decision, without succumbing to them. Equally shifting the focus from strictly seeking an end state of perfect mental health to valuing the day-to-day process of self-improvement can alleviate feelings of inadequacy or impatience in therapy. Taken together, these real-world applications highlight why Stoicism continues to resonate. The approach is broad enough to be customized to one's personal style and obligations, no need to retire to a mountain hermitage. Stoic lessons are not about self-denial, but about measured, purposeful living. We become more discerning about what we let into our minds and how we engage with the tasks and people around us. We curtail forcing issues by trusting that steady effort, moment-to-moment awareness, and periodic reflection pave the way to meaningful accomplishments. Above all, we recognize that the life best lived is not an unbroken string of easy wins, but a tapestry woven of challenges met with equanimity and relationships enriched by authenticity. Having explored the 5th, 6th, and 7th Stoic lessons, practicing mindfulness, using silence, effectively and enjoying the journey, rather than fixating on outcomes, we see how these guidelines further equip us to engage life with a sense of calm and purpose. By bringing mindfulness into our daily activities, we remain centered in the present, reducing the urge to force events that lie outside our control. Through strategic use of silence, we refine our reactions and uncover deeper layers of understanding in our communication with others. And by finding joy in each incremental step of our endeavors, we relieve ourselves of the needless stress that accompanies rigid expectations. Together, these teachings reinforce the overarching theme by refusing to force scenarios or demand that reality conform to our every whim. We can instead shape a more thoughtful, flexible, and ultimately more rewarding life path. Importantly, these lessons are not meant to be grasped as abstract philosophies alone. They are intended for practical application and daily reflection practices that the Stoics themselves lived by. Marcus Aurelius, beset by war and political burdens, famously turned inward to maintain perspective. His meditations serve as a journal of mindfully observing his feelings, employing silence in his imperial decisions, and reminding himself to appreciate the privilege of each passing day. Epictetus, once a slave, found in these principles a means to preserve inner freedom despite external constraints. Seneca, navigating the complexities of Roman politics, wrote letters urging his friends and posterity to cultivate tranquility through measured living. Each, in his own context, exemplified the potential of these lessons to yield resilience and clear-headed action. As we look ahead to Part 3, we will complete the set of 10 lessons by investigating the final 3, which delve into the themes of finding delight in simplicity, embracing gratitude as a foundational practice, and seeking the restorative power of solitude. These last teachings form a natural continuation of what we have already learned, steering us toward a lifestyle that is not overcomplicated by extraneous demands and fosters a profound sense of self-sufficiency. In a society where consumerism, social comparison, and relentless networking are frequently lauded, learning to derive contentment from simple pleasures, to express consistent gratitude, and to cherish time alone can feel revolutionary. Yet these practices align beautifully with Stoic ideals. They reduce our need to impose force on the outside world, anchoring us in a kind of internal wealth that neither fortune nor misfortune can easily take away. In moving forward, it may help to pause and perform a brief self-check. Are you noticing the subtle transformations these lessons might bring? Perhaps you have begun to catch yourself before reacting hastily, harnessing a moment of silence instead. Or maybe you find yourself looking at daily tasks, cooking a meal, sending an email, or cleaning your workspace with a more mindful and appreciative stance. Even small shifts in attitude can accumulate over time, reshaping how you approach challenges, relationships, and personal goals. Thus, let us gather these insights and prepare to incorporate the final 3 lessons into our Stoic repertoire. Part 3 will guide us through the art of finding contentment in life's basic gifts, the power of practicing gratitude as a daily discipline, and the contemplative refuge offered by solitude. Through these final teachings, the Stoic path toward unforced harmonious living becomes all the clearer, prompting us to question not only how to act in any given situation, but how to be in an ever-changing world, tranquil, resourceful, and free from needless strain. Having traversed the first 7 Stoic lessons from living in the present and acknowledging life's impermanence to practicing mindfulness, strategic silence, and embracing the journey, we arrive at the last phase of this exploration. Part 3 will delve into lessons 8, 9, and 10, each of which continues our theme of releasing the urge to force life's circumstances. These final teachings focus on an internal orientation that fosters deeper contentment and autonomy in a rapidly shifting world. Specifically, we will examine how to find joy in the simplest things, practice the art of gratitude, and appreciate solitude as a wellspring of self-knowledge and serenity. While it may seem a lofty claim to say that contentment can hinge on simply noticing small pleasures, or that gratitude can fundamentally transform our emotional landscape, these are indeed cornerstones of Stoic philosophy. Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius recognize that unwavering peace does not derive from complicated schemes or grandiose gestures, but arises when one aligns daily habits and mental frameworks with a clear sense of what genuinely matters. This is where minimalism and simplicity come into play, reminding us that clinging to status, luxury, or validation from others can be a slippery slope to constant anxiety. Similarly, gratitude recalibrates our outlook, turning our attention away from lack and toward abundance, even when circumstances are difficult. And then there is solitude, a concept frequently misunderstood in a world that prizes extroversion and connectivity. Rather than endorsing isolation, Stoics championed solitude as a laboratory for the mind, a space in which one could reflect on virtues, examine personal motives, and process emotions without succumbing to the incessant hum of social influence. For Marcus Aurelius, moments of private reflection were essential to maintaining perspective amidst the immense pressures of leading an empire. For us, living in an era of continuous digital engagement, these quiet interludes might be even more critical. Together, these last 3 lessons round out the Stoic toolkit. They help strip away mental clutter and reduce self-imposed stress, allowing our energy to flow toward meaningful relationships, constructive work, and moral development. Just as with the earlier lessons, their power lies not in theoretical idealism, but in practical, day-to-day application. The transition to a more peaceful state hinges on small, consistent practices of noticing, appreciating, and stepping back. With these, we discover that controlling life's every twist and turn is an impossible and unnecessary burden. Instead, true ease emerges when we stop forcing and start cooperating with reality, as it is finding beauty in modest experiences, recognizing blessings already present and carving out personal space to think and feel without external pressures. In the paragraphs to follow, we will unpack each lesson in detail, illustrating how you might integrate them into your own path. By the end of Lesson 10, our journey through Stoic philosophy's 10 core teachings will be complete, equipping you to live with greater tranquility, inner strength, and a sense of unforced harmony. Let us begin by discovering how even the most ordinary aspects of life can harbor surprising joy when viewed through a Stoic lens. The 8th Stoic lesson, "Find joy in the simplest things," may appear disarmingly straightforward, yet it is one of the most challenging to implement in a culture that tends to glorify relentless ambition and material plenty. Ancient Stoics, however, taught that genuine contentment often arises not from grand possessions or achievements, but from noticing ordinary wonders, a subtle breeze, a shared laugh, or the quiet company of a loved one. Seneca, in his letters, was particularly adamant about the idea that he who desires little actually possesses the entire world. This lesson does not call for self-imposed poverty, but invites us to recognize that happiness is far less dependent on external extravagances than we are commonly led to believe. Consider how modern consumer culture revolves around perpetually raising our standards: a bigger home, a newer car, and the latest tech device. There is nothing inherently wrong with appreciating comfort or improvement. Yet Stoicism cautions us not to place our entire sense of fulfillment on these external upgrades. Why? Because they remain subject to impermanence and factors beyond our control. Economic downturns, accidents, market changes, or shifts in personal circumstances. The moment we tether our joy to such transitory conditions, we become ensnared in an unstable cycle of desire and anxiety. In contrast, Stoics encourage a deliberate examination of simple daily blessings: the reliable warmth of a morning sunbeam, the pleasure of a straightforward meal when truly hungry, or even the capacity to breathe and move freely if one enjoys good health. A pragmatic way to engage with this lesson is to pause during routine tasks like walking in the park, preparing breakfast, or tidying up your living space, and direct your attention to something positive you would typically overlook. Perhaps it is the tactile sensation of freshly washed clothes, the calming drip of raindrops on a window, or the contented purr of a household pet. These micro-experiences may seem trivial, yet to a Stoic mindset, they represent the real fabric of life, the innumerable small moments that collectively shape our days. By training ourselves to register and appreciate these gentle pleasures, we fortify ourselves against the disappointment of forced expectations. We learn that joy need not be monumental or complicated. Furthermore, Seneca's emphasis on simplicity suggests a connection to ethical living. Possessing fewer wants means we can invest more energy in virtue relationships and self-understanding. When we are caught in a perpetual chase for bigger, better, or more, we risk sidelining moral reflection in favor of the hustle. Ironically, this often leads to frustration, moral compromise, or an endless feeling that we are never there yet. However, when we find joy in little things, we lessen our dependence on external fluctuations, forging a sense of internal wealth. This does not eliminate aspiration. It merely reorients aspiration toward self-improvement and wisdom rather than material accrual alone. Such a worldview also has positive ecological and communal implications. Contented individuals living simply tend to consume fewer resources, contributing to sustainability. They also prove more receptive to community ties as they discover that shared experiences and cooperative efforts can yield immense satisfaction. At its core, finding joy in the simplest things urges us to regularly reevaluate what we truly need. In a society that often equates success with indulgence, practicing this lesson takes courage. Yet each instance of noticing a quiet moment of beauty can subtly undermine the frenetic push to force happiness through external gains. Thus, if you yearn for a more unburdened life, try attending to the gentle wonders already woven into your everyday existence. You may find that a deeper, steadier joy emerges on its own, needing no force at all. Closely linked to discovering joy in simple pleasures is the art of gratitude. The ninth Stoic lesson that highlights gratitude as both a daily practice and a sustaining mindset. While gratitude is commonly reduced to polite expressions saying thank you or feeling momentarily appreciative, the Stoics propose a more extensive cultivation of this virtue. Seneca lauded a grateful heart as one of the most beautiful qualities a person can possess, underscoring that gratitude not only acknowledges kindness received, but also elevates our perspective on life's inherent gifts. In Stoicism, gratitude becomes a potent remedy for dissatisfaction, anxiety, and greed. By intentionally reflecting on what we already have: a safe shelter, supportive friends, relative health, meaningful work, our fixation on what we lack diminishes. This recalibration from lack to abundance curbs the impulse to chase possessions or prestige as prerequisites for contentment. Indeed, Epictetus noted that individuals who best grasp the wealth of their current blessings tend to live with a more enduring sense of peace, even if their external resources are modest by societal standards. The principle resonates in contemporary psychology studies consistently show that practicing gratitude daily, such as listing 3 things you are thankful for, can significantly improve mood and resilience. But this does not imply turning a blind eye to life's challenges. Stoic gratitude gracefully coexists with adversity, recognizing that even hardships can yield insights and opportunities for personal growth. For instance, if you face a professional setback, a rejected proposal, or an unsuccessful job application, a Stoic approach to gratitude might be, "I am grateful for the resilience I am developing and the new perspective this experience provides." This shift from pure lamentation to measured appreciation does not deny the sting of failure. Rather, it channels the negative event into a constructive mindset, lessening the sense of emotional defeat. Cultivating gratitude also promotes stronger interpersonal relationships. By expressing sincere thanks to those around us, whether they have offered assistance or shared kind words, we reinforce bonds of mutual respect and understanding. In personal relationships, gratitude serves as a gentle antidote to taking loved ones for granted. Many romantic or familial problems arise when people feel unappreciated, their efforts and presence overlooked. Simple gestures of thanks or reflections on what the other brings into one's life can reawaken empathy and warmth in these connections. Additionally, acknowledging one's fortunes fosters humility, ensuring we do not default to an entitlement mentality that demands more from others or from fate than is warranted. From a Stoic standpoint, gratitude fortifies us against the urge to force outcomes. When we continually recognize how much good already permeates our environment, we feel less desperate to compel reality to provide even more. This is not to say we lose our drive to improve our situation. Excellence in work relationships or personal pursuits remains laudable, but that the underlying motivation transforms. We function from a vantage point of appreciation rather than scarcity. In so doing, we derive a calmer sense of purpose, focusing on ethical actions and thoughtful engagement rather than on frenetic demands for instant rewards. Ultimately, gratitude aligns seamlessly with the entire Stoic orientation. It keeps us tethered to the present, acknowledges the transient nature of external goods, and fosters an inner wealth that is less vulnerable to the whims of fortune. The final lesson. Appreciate solitude addresses a perennial tension in human life, balancing the need for social interaction with the equally vital need for introspective quiet. In a connected society, solitude can seem elusive or even suspect, as though a moment alone were a signal of isolation or antisocial tendencies. Stoics, however, clarify that solitude is not about shutting oneself off from human relationships. Instead, it is about periodically retreating into one's own mental space to find clarity, peace, and self-awareness. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, who navigated monumental military and political pressures, wrote about the importance of having a quiet refuge within the mind, a space untouched by the storms of external events. There is a restorative quality to solitude that many of us overlook in the daily rush. By stepping away from constant inputs, be they social media, emails, or conversation itself, we create an opportunity to process emotions and sort through complex feelings without the filter of external expectations. Solitude allows us to hear our own thoughts more distinctly, including the quiet concerns or aspirations that might be drowned out in a busy environment. Seneca praised those who could sit comfortably in their own company, convinced that it was a sign of a stable and reflective mind. Understood in that sense, solitude fosters the kind of mental order that helps us act thoughtfully rather than succumb to impulsive or forced decisions. Modern life, with its perpetual connectivity, can make solitude feel like a radical act. Yet the Stoics would see it as a healthy counterbalance, a deliberate pause in the noise, so that we might reassess our priorities and ensure we remain aligned with our values. Even short windows of solitude, such as a daily walk without headphones, a few minutes of journaling at dawn, or sitting quietly in a room to gather one's thoughts, can recalibrate our perspective. Epictetus advised his students to be careful about the influences around them, recognizing that unexamined social input might erode their resolve or clarity. Periods of solitude serve as a mental safeguard, an interval in which we can recenter on our chosen path and determine whether our actions reflect Stoic virtues like wisdom and justice. In terms of not forcing anything, solitude offers a chance to examine where we might be pushing too hard. By habitually spending moments alone, we can self-reflect on questions such as, am I trying to control someone else's behavior to fit my preference? Am I exerting more effort than is reasonable in a particular situation? These reflections often illuminate areas of our life where letting go, adjusting expectations, or practicing acceptance could relieve tension. Through solitude, we become aware of the subtle strain we place on ourselves. More importantly, we discover strategies, be it a shift in mindset or a reallocation of energy, to handle challenges with greater equanimity. Far from promoting loneliness, Stoic solitude enriches our public and personal engagements. When we re-emerge into society, we do so with renewed composure, enhanced self-knowledge, and fewer impulses to force immediate outcomes or convert every conversation into a debate. In short, solitude becomes our proving ground for patience, clarity, and genuine independence of thought. Lessons 8, 9, and 10. Finding joy in simplicity. Practicing gratitude and appreciating solitude serve as a culminating triad that crystallizes Stoicism's insistence on an inward sense of fulfillment rather than external control. To integrate these lessons into daily life, one might start by carving out small, consistent routines. For instance, at the start or end of each day, set aside a 5-minute period to reflect in solitude. Use this time to identify at least one simple pleasure you encountered. Maybe it was savoring the taste of a well-cooked meal, relishing a brief moment of sunshine after rain, or laughing with a friend over a shared memory. Such an exercise not only trains you to spot ordinary delights, but also provides a structured slot for gratitude. You might then extend this gratitude into a brief journaling habit wherein you name specific aspects of your life: health, supportive relationships, the capacity to learn or work, or any other resources that deserve recognition. The key is to keep this process genuine rather than mechanical. Merely listing items without emotional engagement can become a hollow ritual. Instead, invest a moment to feel the warmth of gratitude, imagining how different life would be if those blessings were absent. This conjures the Stoic insight of negative visualization, which Marcus Aurelius practiced to appreciate what he had by envisioning its potential loss. By pairing gratitude with solitude, you convert fleeting appreciation into a deeper emotional grounding, transforming these thoughts into a genuine buffer against life's unpredictability. Furthermore, try limiting your consumption of unnecessary material goods or digital stimuli for a short trial period, perhaps a week, to experience the power of simplicity. Replace discretionary online shopping or prolonged social media browsing with a leisurely walk or creative project. Notice whether the perceived void of not shopping or not scrolling can be filled by focusing on simpler joys. The point is not to renounce all worldly possessions or pleasures, but to witness firsthand how contentment can flourish when one is not perpetually seeking the next acquisition or the next stimulus. This voluntary simplicity echoes Seneca's advice to practice poverty, occasionally eating simple meals and living modestly, so that you understand that hardship is not as terrifying as it seems. Once that fear evaporates, the impulse to force or hoard lessens dramatically. If the concept of solitude feels daunting, especially in a crowded household or a bustling city, consider micro-retreats. Even a few minutes seated in silence at your desk with eyes closed can sharpen your emotional perception. You could also plan a regular mini-break, a stroll in a local park or a quiet corner in a library where you refrain from using your phone. During these minutes, allow the mind to wander, gently noticing which thoughts arise without chasing them into worry or over-analysis. This manner of observation is reminiscent of mindfulness, but also fosters the Stoic brand of introspection. By seeing these patterns of thought, you may detect new angles on current concerns or realize where you might be forcing outcomes or opinions unnecessarily. These small but consistent practices weave the final 3 lessons into your weekly routine. You develop a more profound appreciation for life's simplest gifts, nurture a grateful heart, and establish pockets of solitude where clarity can blossom. Over time, you may find it easier to step away from external pressures that once felt irresistible. In the Stoic tradition, such an evolution indicates genuine progress, a gradual freeing of oneself from compulsion fueled by the abiding knowledge that internal resources, rather than external acquisitions, form the bedrock of a tranquil life. At this stage, we have traversed the 10 Stoic lessons that collectively guide us toward a life free from the strain of forced outcomes. To recount them succinctly, live fully in the present. Anchor your awareness in the now disempowering fears about the future and regrets about the past. Understand the impermanence of life. Embrace the reality that all things change, fostering resilience and deeper gratitude. The power of acceptance. Recognize the limits of your influence and choose serenity over frustration in the face of uncontrollable events. Learn to let go. Release attachments, resentments, and unproductive desires that weigh you down. Practice mindfulness. Observe your thoughts and emotions without becoming enslaved to them, creating room for wiser responses. Use silence effectively. Harness reflective pauses to listen, understand, and respond more thoughtfully. Enjoy the journey, not just the outcomes. Invest in the daily process of growth and avoid pinning your worth on end results. Find joy in the simplest things. Cultivate contentment by savoring small everyday pleasures. The art of gratitude. Shift perspective from lack to abundance by regularly acknowledging the many gifts and opportunities already present. Appreciate solitude. Step away from constant stimuli, allowing moments of quiet introspection to refine your emotional equilibrium. United under the banner. Don't force anything in your life. These lessons reveal a cohesive worldview that challenges the conventional assumption that success and happiness can be beaten into submission through constant effort. Rather than championing laziness, Stoicism advocates purposeful action, grounded in clear discernment and moral rectitude. It teaches that real strength lies in focusing on what we can govern, our choices, attitudes, and internal growth, while skillfully adapting to external factors beyond our direct control. In doing so, we reclaim a substantial measure of peace, because we are no longer expending ourselves on unattainable tasks or illusions of total dominance over events. Across these lessons, certain motifs recur: awareness of the present moment, of our own limitations of opportunities; for gratitude, alignment with nature's flow, with virtue, with the real scope of our power; and adaptive resilience. Letting go of unrealistic outcomes, turning inward for clarity. Taken together, they support a life philosophy where less is forced and more is allowed to unfold, according to reasoned effort and acceptance. By intentionally adopting these practices, we discover that exertion need not equate to stress. We can be deeply committed to our responsibilities, be it raising a family, advancing a career, or improving a community, without shackling ourselves to the false promise that we can orchestrate every detail. Moreover, a hallmark of Stoicism is its practical dimension. The lessons we covered are grounded in day-to-day exercises, reflections, and personal discipline. Whether it is pausing before reacting in traffic, reducing clutter to sharpen appreciation of simple objects, or taking a 5-minute break to journal about your blessings, Stoic wisdom operates best in tangible steps. Philosophy, in the Stoic sense, should not merely adorn speech, but shape character. Every effort to incorporate these lessons, however minor, reinforces the path away from forced living toward a calm, deliberate, and ethically robust existence. One of the most liberating insights you may encounter on this journey is the recognition that letting go of force does not mean surrendering to passivity or helplessness. On the contrary, it opens the door to a more potent, discerning form of agency. When no longer gripped by anxious micromanagement or the fear of failure, you can engage with pursuits you deem worthwhile, developing your talents, serving others, or forging meaningful relationships with a balanced sense of purpose. You bring forth your best all the while, acknowledging that outcomes hinge on many factors, some of which remain impervious to even the greatest human will. In concluding this synthesis, it is worth reiterating that Stoicism is a living tradition. Practitioners across centuries have adapted its core ideas to match the evolving contexts of humanity, from ancient marketplaces to modern office cubicles. The enduring appeal suggests that its central doctrines speak to a profound truth about human nature. While we crave control, real peace comes from a wise interplay of self-regulation and acceptance. If you carry forward these 10 lessons, internalizing them and continually refining them, then you are indeed walking a Stoic path, one illuminated by patience, insight, and a freedom that is rooted in understanding rather than force. As we arrive at the end of this extensive exploration, it is natural to ask, where do I go from here? Stoic philosophy, as we have seen, is not about passively reading or theorizing. It calls for practice, whether that is daily journaling, mindful introspection, or conscientious dialogue with others. The true measure of success lies not in how many Stoic quotes one can recite, but in the quieter transformations of character, the ability to remain composed in adversity, to extend empathy when tempted by anger, to find beauty in modest surroundings, and to appreciate solitude in a world crowded with demands. These changes do not materialize instantly. They unfurl over weeks, months, or even years of purposeful effort. Remember that each of the 10 lessons is interlinked, living in the present moment. Lesson 1 supports finding joy in simple pleasures. Lesson 8. Understanding impermanence. Lesson 2 primes the mind for gratitude. Lesson 9, because if everything is subject to change, then each possession, each friendship, and each opportunity becomes more precious. Acceptance. Lesson 3, and letting go. Lesson 4, resonate with solitude. Lesson 10, since fully embracing time alone requires releasing the fear that we might be missing out on external events. Mindfulness. Lesson 5, and judicious silence. Lesson 6, underpin the capacity to enjoy the process rather than obsess over the destination. Lesson 7. When we see how these philosophical pillars support each other, we begin to understand that Stoicism is an integrated system of thought rather than a scatterplot of unrelated ideas. In moving forward, consider creating a personal regimen that incorporates these principles in small, attainable increments. For instance, you might pair mindfulness practice with short intervals of silence each morning before the household stirs awake. You could end each evening listing 1 or 2 simple joys you observed throughout the day, alongside expressing thanks for anything good that happened or any lesson learned from a setback. Periodically schedule a window, maybe once a month, to review how well you have maintained your Stoic commitments. Have you been living in the present more consistently? Is your acceptance of uncontrollable events growing stronger? Are you resisting the urge to force certain relationships or outcomes? Such self-checks can make philosophical growth more tangible and prevent backsliding into old habits. Finally, do not hesitate to explore further readings, communities, or workshops dedicated to Stoic philosophy. Engaging with others on a similar path can deepen your understanding and offer moral support. Yet always remember that Stoicism is designed to cultivate self-reliance and internal governance. While fellowship can inspire and guide, the essence of Stoic progress is learning how to govern one's own mind. Each step you take in that direction reduces the tension between you and the external world. Rather than exerting force, you will find yourself moving with greater grace and assurance through life's varied scenarios. In conclusion, let the phrase, "don't force anything in your life," echo as both a caution and an encouragement. It cautions us against the countless ways we can entangle ourselves in needless strife. It encourages us to trust that with thoughtful effort, virtues honed by reflection, and an acceptance of the world's inherent flux, we can lead lives that are both purposeful and at peace. May these 10 lessons guide you in that endeavor, providing an enduring compass for navigating the challenges and wonders that lie ahead. Personally, integrating these Stoic principles into my daily life has genuinely felt like unlocking a powerful secret one that brings resilience, gratitude, and deep, meaningful joy even when life gets tough. Whether it's finding beauty in the simplest moments, embracing the art of acceptance, or realizing how much peace comes from letting go of control, each lesson has profoundly improved my own sense of well-being. But I'm even more curious to hear from you. Which of these ideas resonated most strongly? Have you already started applying any of these practices, or did any particular story speak directly to your experiences? Please drop your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I'd love to keep the conversation going. Your insights could inspire others on their own journey toward greater happiness and inner peace. Let's explore this together.